It was a year like no other. And if Canadians were to summarize 2020 in one word, what would they say? Loss, fight, compassion, or maybe uncertainty. As our nation battles through a global pandemic, we have looked to our leaders for guidance as well as for action. So how have we fared and what's ahead? This morning, let's get some answers. Joining me now live in Ottawa is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Appreciate you joining, especially on such a cold day, I know. But let's get right to it. I want to begin with some positive news. In the last 2 weeks, there is a sense of hope, a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel when we're looking at vaccinations. And it's interesting to see, but just 9 months ago, the World Health Organization is saying we are in a global pandemic. 9 months later, we're getting inoculations, those shots in arms. How confident are you in your government's vaccination plan? We've got a very diverse portfolio. It's somewhat of an insurance policy. How do you feel about it moving forward?
Well, first of all, as you say, the fact that 9 months later we have a vaccine that's being given to people is just a heroic effort by scientists and researchers around the world who've gotten us to this place. It is absolutely amazing because we weren't certain that we would get a vaccine or that we would get a vaccine quickly enough. And obviously 9 months was still 9 months too long because we would have not wanted to lose as many Canadians and people around the world as we have. But we now know that with vaccines, there is going to be an end to this. And seeing that it's coming, it's not yet, and we're still going to have a tough winter ahead of us, but knowing that it's coming is great. We set out, as you said, to have the widest range of potential vaccines of any other country and have secured more potential doses per Canadian than any other country, just so we knew that we would be able to get through this. And that's exactly what's happening. It'll ramp up slowly. We have an amazing logistical team. We're rolling out a really strong plan, and Canadians can have confidence that it's coming. But in the meantime, we're going to have to go through a tough holiday season and a tough winter.
The plan right now is to have enough vaccines to give the entire nation by September. So the question is, what percentage of this population needs to be inoculated for us to say this pandemic is under control?
That is a great question, and it's a question I seem to ask every couple of days of the experts and scientists I talk to, because we don't yet know. There's going to be a lot of studying of the impacts of the vaccines, of the effects of the vaccines on when we can start looking at removing or releasing some of the restrictions in various places. We know that it's going to take a significant portion of the population. Is it once we hit 40%? Is it once we hit 60%? We really don't know. What we do have a strong expectation of is things are going to be better in the spring and probably much better in the summer. But that's just a lot of hope, and there's a lot of work to be done by experts who we listen to and who we base our decisions on as we move forward.
As we move forward, as we look at those timelines, when are you yourself going to be getting the vaccination? We've seen different approaches from various world leaders. Are you going to be getting it with the early doses, or are you looking when the general population can get it as early as April?
Listen, when there's a time for healthy people in their 40s to get their vaccine, when it's our turn, I will be as close to the front of that line as I can get. I am super enthusiastic about getting vaccines. I certainly want to show people that they're safe and that we trust our doctors. But there's a lot of vulnerable people who need to get these vaccines much quicker than I will, and we're going to make sure that they get it first, because that's the priority.
One of the questions, Mr. Prime Minister, that we're getting a lot is retrospective. People want you to be able to look back. And when we look back to that 9-month period, when we heard about what is COVID-19, if you were to change one thing about your response, it could be in what the government decided to do. It could be within a program. Is there anything that you feel you got wrong that you would have done over?
Well, I think we all know there's lots of things we would have done differently. This was an unprecedented situation that nobody around the world, or very few people around the world, were properly prepared for. But if I went back, if when Dr. Tam started telling us about the potential of the concerning news coming out in January, coming out of China, we would have immediately turned around and started to procure lots of PPE, because that scramble in the beginning of the pandemic in March and April, where there were real concerns about frontline health workers who were reusing masks and having to bring them home and wash them, that was something that I would have loved to have been able to avoid. And that's certainly something we're learning going forward. I mean, we now have over 2 billion pieces of PPE in Canada, so we're fine now. But in those first months, I think we needed to be readier, and we're going to make sure that going forward, Canada is never caught without equipment to protect our frontline workers again. That's certainly something that we can focus on. But there's lots of things we've learned. But one of the things we learned through the scramble on PPE was to be early on vaccines, and that's how we ended up in such a great situation on vaccines. So you know, there's pluses and downsides of everything, but certainly being readier on PPE could have been something we've done.
Indeed, there was a lot of criticism, people saying originally that Canada was at the back of the line, though, us being one of the first countries to be able to do the inoculations. And so definitely some positive to look at there. But when we look at 2020, the theme being loss, and whether or not it was lives lost or livelihoods lost, your government really needed to step up. And so we're seeing a number of support programs like CERB and other various supports. And indeed, that was needed. So I think a lot of people will agree with that. But that price tag really ballooning in seeing, you know, a $381 billion deficit. And the question here is, who's going to foot that bill?
Well, I think you're absolutely right that we made a decision early on to have people's backs, and we felt that that was the only way through this pandemic, and making sure, because we all know someone who lost their job because of COVID, whose business was in deep trouble, who were really worried about how they're going to bring groceries to the table or pay their rents. We needed to be there for each other. But if you think about it, there's no question this pandemic was a massive economic hit. So the question was, who was going to bear the brunt of it? Should Canadians be putting extra debt on their credit card to buy groceries to get things through? Well, people pay about 19% on interest rates on your credit card. The federal government borrows at almost 0%. So obviously it was much better for us to go into debt so that Canadians wouldn't have to, because not only does that give people the reassurance to be able to get through this pandemic, but it also positions us well for coming back stronger once we pick up, because we won't have seen the kind of destruction and scarring. I mean, yes, there have been tough times, but we've been there for each other, and Canada's going to come through this better than anyone else. Now, in terms of the expense of it, it would have been far more expensive over the long term to allow businesses to fail, to allow families to go deeper into debt or even lose their homes. That would have been much more expensive. So these investments that we've made in Canadians right now, contextually for the pandemic, is exactly what the top international economic bodies are recommending countries do if they can. And we, of course, can, because we came into this with the best economic positioning of any G7 country. And even with all those investments, we're still in one of the strongest economic positions of any country around the world.
You have mentioned that Canadians will not be seeing a tax hike this year, though you have recently announced an ambitious commitment to fight climate change, and with that, a gradual carbon tax, and it is fairly significant. And your critics, even the Ontario Premier, is saying here, well, what is that going to mean for the average Ontarian, Canadian, with rising grocery prices, prices at the pumps, heating their homes? And what do you say to those who are struggling right now and they're looking at this price tag thinking, how am I going to make it through?
It's very simple. The average family gets back more money with the carbon tax incentive at tax time than they pay out on average, even with the increase in carbon taxes, because the increase in the family payments will increase as well. This is something we have to do to prepare for the economy of the future, to make sure our industries are cutting edge and competitive on the global market, but it can't be something that is borne by families, and that's why the money that comes in from the carbon tax is returned to a great greater amount per family right across the country, particularly in Ontario. And I've told that directly to the Premier of Ontario a whole bunch of times. And I hope that eventually people are going to understand what many Canadians see every year is that more money comes back to them because of the price on pollution than it actually costs them in extra charges. And that is how you actually make a better future in a way that is sustainable for everyone. I don't understand those premiers and those leaders who want to make pollution free again. We know that putting a price on pollution is the best way to build the economy of the future and support Canadians through it.
Okay, Prime Minister, we are running out of a bit of time here, but I do want to get to a couple more topics with you. It has been an interesting year for you personally. You have, over your time as Prime Minister, been at the center of a number of ethical controversies, let's say, the most recent being with We Charity. So I want to get your take on confidence, public confidence. With a minority government, are we looking to an election in 2021? Are you prepared for that?
I think Canadians want their different orders of government and political parties to work together. And I think we've seen a tremendous level of cooperation on really big issues. Whether it's supports for families, we got unanimous support for our plan to help Canadians in the House of Commons, or whether it's the fact that we're working extremely closely with the provinces on delivering rapid testing, on delivering contact tracers, on delivering PPE, on transferring tens of billions of dollars to the provinces to be able to better support their citizens. People have seen we're working together, and I want to continue to work closely with all parliamentarians to be able to deliver for Canadians. But as you point out, this is a minority parliament, and if the opposition parties decide that we're doing too much, as the Conservatives have said, to help ordinary Canadians, or others think we're not doing enough, we might have an election. I certainly don't want one. I think we need to focus on getting through this pandemic first. But we're, of course, in a democracy, and a government doesn't get to decide whether or not an election happens if the House chooses to vote against confidence.
Well, indeed, Mr. Prime Minister, you have a full plate, and I thank you for your time here with me. And now I want to bring in Dina Pugliese, who has some questions as well for you. So thank you to you, and happy holidays as well.
Thanks, Mel. Here come the tough ones. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, how are you? Good to see you. It's freezing. Thank you for braving the cold for us and for the country this morning. I want to get started.
Glad to do it, Dina.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good to see you. Let's speak to all of the frontline workers watching right now. The teachers have been heroes. You, as a former teacher, know how challenging it is in non-pandemic times. So what do you want to say to all the frontline workers, the teachers watching this morning?
Well, I want to specifically single out the frontline health workers who have been showing up and putting themselves at risk at the same to keep us safe at the same time as they have the same kinds of anxieties about their families, about their loved ones, about this pandemic as everyone else. They have been the first order heroes, but everyone else, from teachers to grocery shelf stockers to truck drivers to farmers and fishers and people who've made sure that things keep functioning in this country, even during this pandemic. We've seen Canadians step up time and time again and be there for each other. And even as we see tremendous tragedy this year, we've seen how strongly Canadians come together. And that has been inspiring even in these most difficult times.
And the next few weeks are crucial. Here we are, right? Approaching Christmas. What do you want to say to people who feel alone, scared, frustrated? What is some advice that you can give us looking into Christmas and 2021?
Well, I think, first of all, we know that the end of this pandemic is coming. Vaccines rolling out means there is a path, and this spring, this summer, things will be much better. But we still have to make it through this tough winter. But you're not alone. Even if you are physically alone, you can reach out to friends, to loved ones, to helplines that the government has helped set up. You can check out coronavirus.ca Canada.ca/coronavirus and follow the links for the wellness portal that we have that can give you resources to make it through these tough times. But everyone needs to think about their neighbor who might be alone, an elder who might be afraid, we need to make sure that even as we connect with only with those closest to us at Christmas, as we're being asked to across the country, we do reach out and share love and joy and hope to all Canadians as we get through this last difficult winter of this pandemic.
Find joy in any shape or form, even if it's, I don't know, using the word speaking moistly. Let's go back to early April. Remember this little moment, the two words heard around the world.
That is okay. It protects others more than it protects you, because it prevents you from breathing or speaking moistly on them.
There it is.
Oh, what a terrible image.
Okay, so then of course there was the meme. Here you sit. Okay, it's the end of the year. You're the top 3 YouTube videos of the year. You made the top 3. Do you laugh at it? Do the kids laugh at it?
Oh yeah, there's lots of laughing at it, as I think I did right afterwards. I knew it was the wrong thing to say, but at the same time, if that message got passed, it's a good message. Don't be breathing on people. Don't be,
right.
Make sure we're protecting ourselves and keeping distance. And if that actually helped people realize, oh, okay, that's something we have to watch out for, then I'll take it. I'll take the mockery if it's saving lives and helping people get through this to any degree.
And listen, I saw your beautiful wife, Sophie, love to her and your kids, her Instagram account. They're baking cookies. So I hope you have lots to look forward to this Christmas season. And I have some sad news to report. This is the last panettone I was able to find. I'm not a cheapskate. It's a tiny one. But being Italian, this is the gift I would like to give to you should it arrive on time. Question is, would you like it to arrive on time? Are you okay if the panettone does not get to you? How do you feel about panettone, Prime Minister?
I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so I will certainly look forward to it. But I have a feeling that since my kids have discovered baking and there's not as much going out, a lot of people staying. Of course, there's no going out, so we're all staying in.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of baking going on. So I won't say I won't miss the panettone, but I'll have lots of substitutes while I impatiently wait for yours to arrive.
More for me then. That's what I am hearing. So good to see you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we look forward to again speaking to you whenever we can. Thank you for doing that with us today on BT Canada. Get inside, get warm. Love to you and the kids. Thank you, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Love to everyone. Stay safe. Happy holidays, and mostly Happy New Year. We all need a good one coming up.
We all do. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more BT Canada right after this.